kids, Mrs. Muffin here, and I'm ready to make some art with you. As usual, before we get started, let's make sure that we're mentally and physically prepared to make some art. How are you feeling today? Are you feeling stressed out? Are you feeling happy, excited? Do you have the wiggles? Maybe you're feeling chill or calm or sad. Just recognizing how you feel can be helpful in any situation. If you're feeling sad, it's okay to feel sad. Just remember, it's okay to feel any emotion because we're human beings and we're emotional beings. Let's take some deep breaths to start. We've done this before, but we are going to do a little bit of a different spin on it this time. This time, I want you to breathe in through your nose, and then I want you to breathe out through your mouth twice as long as your breath in was. So if I breathe in for 4 seconds, I'm going to breathe out for 8 seconds, as an example. Let's try it. It seems like an easy thing, but it can be really hard. You have to push all of the air out of your stomach, and you want to breathe out, 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 get all of that air out, and then you can take another breath. Do that a few times, and then you should feel really chill and calm and ready to go. Remember, if you need to get a snack, go to the bathroom, walk around the house, maybe get a blanket, it's winter time, maybe put some warmer socks on, something like that, go for it. Now let's talk about our physical space. Do you have enough area on your table or your desk or your couch, wherever you're working? The floor is fine too. Are there a lot of supplies all around that you don't need that maybe you could clean up so that you have a clear, clean area to focus? Do what you need to do to make sure your space is ready. For today's supplies, it's definitely different than it might be at school. At school, I would just hand you a couple of supplies and I'd say, go for it. But because we're at home, everybody's going to have different supplies, and a lot of you might not have one of the supplies I'm going to show you. So I'm going to give you some creative ideas for other supplies you can use to make this project. It doesn't matter if you're at home and you don't have the perfect supplies, you should be able to find things around your house that you can use. The first thing you're going to need is paper. The paper I'm using is a piece of black paper. It's the same size as a piece of paper you'd put in a printer, and you can see I folded it. I'll get to that later, but I just used this black paper. A lot of you aren't going to have nice thick cardstock black paper at home, so we need to be creative. If you have printer paper, you could color it. This was for a different project, so that's why it's brown, but I just took a marker and I colored it because I didn't have this color paper and I needed some. So one idea is, don't color a whole sheet of paper, but see how I do the project, and then you can just color in the part of the paper that needs to be colored in. And in that case, you don't need black paper. You could have white paper that you color black in the areas that need to be colored in. Again, wait and see what needs to be colored in before you go coloring a whole sheet of paper. You don't need to do that. Another idea, you could use some newspaper or those ads they send in the mail for like coupons for stores. You could totally use that. You could use it as it is. You could color it with a marker, maybe some paint, a Sharpie if you have it. You could use old magazine clippings. You could use different colored paper if you have it, scrapbooking paper. As long as you have permission from the adults in your house, use whatever paper you can find for this project. But the easiest way to go would be if you were able to get some black paper like this. You could even message your teacher, since you have 2 weeks to work on this project, and say, hey, I really need a black piece of paper for this art project. Can I pop in and get it? And maybe your teacher could help arrange to get you a piece of paper for this project. But I definitely think we can be creative and find paper scraps or something that can be recycled at home to make this project. The next thing you're going to need is some string. Now, I had this purple string. It's called embroidery floss. You could use yarn. Another idea is dental floss, the stuff that you floss your teeth with. You could use that. You could use sewing string. It doesn't matter what kind it is. It doesn't need to be this kind. I just use this because I had it. You could use any kind of string or thread that you have that your grown-up is okay with you using. And if you really don't have dental floss or string or anything you can use for this, you could just use tape, or you could glue the pieces of your project to a piece of paper, something like that. You could even find a stick in your backyard and tape or glue the parts of your project to that. If you don't have string, don't be sad. Be creative, find a way to make this project work. You will need a pencil. You should all have one of those. And if you don't, that's okay. You could use a color pencil or a crayon or paint. I wouldn't recommend paint for this project, but if you really only have paint to use, that's okay. You also need some scissors. And then if you want to, you could use some glitter or glitter glue on this project, or metallic paint, something like that. You can decorate your project. You'll see what it is in a minute. You can decorate your project any way you want. Maybe you could add beads or stickers. It's totally up to you. You can have fun with this. But for me, I just used, on my example, a piece of black paper, scissors, a white color pencil, a pencil, tape, and that's it. That's what I used on my example. Remember, be creative if you don't have those specific supplies. Our goal today is to make a moon mobile. It's kind of hard to show on the camera, but I can do this and show you that it's the phases of the moon. On one side, I've got drawings of all of the moon phases. And on the other side, they're labeled with the moon phase that that drawing represents. So our goal for today is to make at least one mobile. It's called a mobile because it hangs like this. Mine's straight down in a string, but you could hang yours in a circle or some other shape, and you can hang it from the ceiling. I like to hang mine up in the window. I think that's a fun place to put it. Our other goal is to learn a little bit more about the moon phases. This is something you're going to learn about in science this year, and so I wanted to give us an art project to go along with that learning. I'm going to show some information about the moon phases on the video now, and I'm going to direct you to some links that will teach you more about them. And then after that, I'm going to show you how to make this hanging moon art project. So the first thing you're going to do is fold your paper. I've already folded my paper. There are 8 moons in the moon cycle every month. The moon changes constantly throughout the month, so every day is kind of like a different phase. But for this art project, and most of the time in science class, you're going to really focus on just 8 of those phases. And that's why I folded my paper into 8 sections. The first thing I did was fold it in half. I would call this hot dog, or horizontally, like this. Then I folded that in half. And then I folded that in half. My paper's a little thicker, so I had to push it on my table really hard. I don't recommend folding in the air like I'm doing in this video. That's really hard. I recommend folding it on your desk. It's a lot easier. If you need help with this project, this is an area where you could ask for help. If you have an older sibling or person in the house, or a grown-up, and they can help you with the folding, I'm fine with that. I do want you to try and do the drawing and the cutting and the rest of the project on your own, but if you need a little bit of help with the folding, that's understandable. Don't worry though if the folding's not perfect, because guess what? We're gonna cut this paper up. The next step is to draw 8 circles on your paper. I don't expect anyone to be able to draw a perfect circle. I certainly can't. The circles I made for my moon mobile, I traced. You can find an object in your house and trace it to get a circle. For this project, I traced this. It was a lid on this little jar of sequins that I have. I just stuck it on the paper, and then I took my pencil and I traced around the edge. And that's how I got that perfect circle shape. Other ideas. This sunflower butter or peanut butter lid, you wouldn't want to use it if it was open and sticky, but this could make a great circle shape if you have enough paper to do circles this big. That's something to consider. We wouldn't want a circle that's this big, because that'd be a really, really giant moon mobile. If you want to make one that big, go for it, but you would have to have a lot of paper and a lot of space. You also wouldn't want one like this lipstick that's this big, because then your moon mobile will be like this big, and that's a little bit too small to write the moon phases on the back. So we want something bigger than this, but smaller than this. Just like I showed you, after you find a round object, you're going to place it on the paper, and then with pencil or white color pencil or crayon, you're going to trace that object to give you a circle. Once again, I'm going to use the lid from this little jar. After that, I'm going to cut out the circles. It's okay if your lines aren't perfect. Our goal in art is never perfection. It's problem solving, growth, fun, creativity, and in this case, learning a little bit more about the moon cycles. After you cut out all 8 circles, you're going to label your moons. I would label and kind of draw out my moon one at a time, otherwise you might get the phases and things mixed up. You can look at the video and the information that I already gave you here for the moon phases. So the first moon phase is pretty easy because you don't have to color anything in. Do you know what moon phase that would be? It would be all black like this. If you guessed new moon, you're correct. It is the new moon. That's when it looks like there's no moon in the sky. It's all dark. The moon's still there, but we just don't see it. And that's when it looks just like this. It's blank, almost like there's no moon. And it's called new moon because now the cycle's starting over again, and the moon will grow and you'll see more and more of it as the month goes on. So I've got this one labeled, and I'm going to move on to the next one. The next phase is waxing crescent. Waxing means something's growing. People used to say waxing strong. That means someone was growing stronger. Like if you were really sick and you had to work on getting stronger so you could walk around and be healthy and out and doing things, you would say you were waxing stronger. So you're growing strong. And then crescent means it has that crescent shape like this, like a crescent moon. And so it's a growing crescent shape. You can stop and color your moon in all the way right now, or if you're not ready to color it in, mark which part gets colored in. That way we don't get mixed up. A lot of times students will draw this and they might accidentally color in this part instead of this part. This is the part that gets colored in for this moon phase, so I marked it with X's so I know. I'm also just going to stop and color it in. I have all of my moon phases colored in and labeled. Colored in and labeled. You might have noticed that a lot of them look the same. If I turn my moon this way, they look the same, don't they? But they are different things. That's okay, because the moon phases kind of create a pattern where they go in towards that full moon where it's all colored in, and then it does the same thing but in reverse. So they look the same like this, but when I tape them together, I want to make sure that I flip them around so they're going in the correct direction. I like to lay all of my moon phases out on the table in front of me, and then I know what to tape to next. This is a part of the lesson where I really like to have a picture of the moon phases right in front of me. So maybe pause the video and see how the moon phases are laid out, and then I start taping. So I have all of my moon phases laid out and I'm ready to start taping them together. This time around, I'm going to use dental floss for my string. So I'm going to pull it out to about the length I need, and then you can use scissors or the little cut thing on your floss. You can have a grown-up help you with that part. And I'm going to lay my string out. You could use glue, but I definitely recommend tape for this project. It makes it go by a lot easier. So I'm going to take my first one, which is my new moon, and I'm going to take the string and I'm going to tape it to it. Use my fingernail to mush down the tape so it's really good and strong on there. And now I've got my first piece done. So now I need to add my next piece. Now this part can be tricky. I want to make sure that when I flip it over that I'm not accidentally twisting it, because if I flip it over and it's this way, that's a different moon phase, or this way, I want to make sure that it's flipped just like the opposite. And I'll check. So far, so good. Take it and flip. Making sure I don't twist it around in the wrong direction. And if I do accidentally put it in the wrong spot, I can unpeel that tape and fix it. No big deal. It's okay if the words on the back of your moon are in the wrong direction. We're more worried about what the moon looks like on this side than we are about our labels being in the right direction. But so far so good. Oh, see, look at this one. This one got a little bit crooked, so I'm actually going to flip it over, and I can kind of pull my string out, peel off that tape, and redo it. Because I do want them to be pretty straight if I can. So I'm going to make sure this one, this time, it's supposed to go this way, flip. That's better. It's a lot less crooked. Almost done. 2 more. Now I have a little bit of extra string, so I'm just gonna snip that off. And I've got it. My moon phases are in the correct direction. If any of them are crooked or in the wrong direction, you can still fix them, no big deal. That's why I like the tape, because it's easier to fix. And then I can take this and hang it in the window. I hope you enjoyed this moon mobile project. Don't forget to take a picture of it and send it to your gen ed teacher or to me, and we can put it on the school gallery at Padlet.com. I can't wait to see what you created.